Today in the battle arena, well, we've got a gorilla versus a wolf. Giant gorilla versus a giant wolf. George the gorilla, the big guy from Rampage, against Fenris the Wolf, the best freaking dog in the MCU. So who's coming out on top here? Who wins? Well, let's find out. So Fenris is a giant Asgardian wolf who served Hela during the time where Asgard was expanding across the Nine Realms, where she wreaked some major havoc in the process. And actually, before we get to talking about Fenris, I want to pause real quick. Talk about the Hulk first. Talk about just how strong the Hulk is. Because, I mean, Fenris's main thing is fighting the Hulk. That's her claim to fame. And so, in order to appreciate what we're talking about, we gotta understand just how strong the Hulk is. Kind of set a baseline for the scale that we're operating at here. Well, he's overpowered Thor, tossed around Thor, body slammed Thor, just treated Thor like a rag doll. He's overpowered and destroyed Iron Man and the Hulkbuster. You could even argue that he had kinda overpowered Thanos for a little while, at least before this happened. He's held up Avengers Mansion with just one hand. He's destroyed Leviathans with just one punch. Even knocked down Surtur. Holy crap, is Hulk strong. And yet, when he went up against Fenris, well, Hulk was struggling to keep the wolf's mouth open. And she was just ragdolling the Hulk around, basically treating the mightiest Avenger like he was nothing more than the mightiest chew toy. On top of that, Fenris has got enough bite power and sharp enough teeth to actually pierce through Hulk's hide, where Hulk is usually tough enough to take aircraft fire absolutely no problem. In fact, only two beings in the MCU have ever even managed to get through Hulk's skin: Abomination and Fenris. That's a pretty good list to be on, especially considering everything Abomination was doing in that movie. Fenris is even so strong, she's even able to crack and break apart the Rainbow Bridge. And that bridge is incredibly tough. In fact, in the first Thor movie, it took Thor several blows from Mjolnir to crack through the bridge. And Fenris was making it look just easy in comparison. On top of that, Fenris isn't just real strong, but she can take a punch. She can definitely take a punch. I mean, she was taking punch after punch after punch after punch from the Hulk. Took all those punches, act like she didn't feel them. Hulk has damaged Thor, Hulkbuster, Abomination, Ultron, even Surtur with his punches. Yet he goes up against Fenris, and the wolf is able to shrug them off like it was nothing. In fact, you can argue that Fenris was actually winning the fight, and the only reason that Hulk ended up winning was because he flipped her off the lake, let her fall into oblivion. Fenris also stood up remarkably well to piercing attacks, as the Valkyrie just laid into her with a big ol' Asgardian Gatling gun. Just did nothing. We don't even know if Fenris can technically die, or if she's even alive in order to be able to die. Okay, so that's Fenris, that's the wolf. Now let's talk about the gorilla. Let's talk about George. So George was just a normal gorilla, if you can call an all-white gorilla who speaks fluent sign language normal. But then he got exposed to some mutagen, and basically just transformed into a way bigger version of himself. Didn't really gain any cool superpowers like the other two did. He did gain some super strength though. For real. I mean, he was out there just casually knocking over buildings, throwing around military vehicles like they were nothing, easily picking up helicopters. But it's really his fights against the other two monsters that I think is really impressive. George threw Ralph around a good long ways. He smashed Lizzie with a big old construction crane. actually knocked her out for a little bit, bashed Lizzie upside the head of a dump truck, even stopped Lizzie's tail for a little bit. And that's just talking about George's strength. Because, surprise, surprise, along with that strength comes a whole lot of toughness. Bullets are literally nothing to him at this point, can take those easily. I mean, he survived an airstrike. That's the kind of durability we're talking about here. George was fine after being in a plane crash. Those three monsters brought down the Sears Tower. No, I'm not calling it the Willis Tower. Sorry, Bruce. They brought down the Sears, brushed it off. George even survived being freaking impaled through the chest. On top of that, Ralph and Lizzie both definitely got their hits in. They got their licks. But George was the only one left standing at the end. Granted, he had The Rock helping him. That's pretty big help. The dude is like superhuman in this movie. But still, George is pretty powerful. Alright, so that's who the two fighters are. How do I see this playing out? Well, there are actually a few advantages here that just fall squarely in George's corner. One, he's bigger, but by kinda a lot. Fenris is what, like 15, 20 feet tall? George is double that. Two, George has already fought a wolf before, and again, that wolf is bigger than Fenris. Three, George just has more feats. Fighting Ralph and Lizzie, taking on the military, surviving plane crashes and buildings crumbling down. George went through a lot in that movie. What did Fenris do again? Fight the Hulk? Wait. Fight the Hulk? The Hulk? One of the strongest Avengers? One of the strongest characters in the MCU? That's what she did? Yeah, that's what she did. And honestly, that throws the scaling of this fight so off. Because, I mean, just look at some of the stuff Hulk did just in that movie. He fought against Thor, overpowered Thor, beat Thor senseless, technically won the fight until Thor unlocked that power up. And when he decided to really show off, really flex his muscles, and kind of knocked around Surtur, that's the guy that Fenris went up against. And that's the guy Fenris was kinda beating. George did some cool stuff in Rampage, but I don't think he did anything nearly enough for me to say that he could do to Hulk what Fenris did to Hulk. I mean, that would kinda ruin my reputation if I said that. Yeah, it's looking like George and Fenris are just on two different tiers. Fenris is just more powerful. And because of that, it's pretty easy to say that she's coming out on top. Fenris wins. But what do y'all think? I would love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think wins this fight? George or Fenris? Sign off down below. Also, be sure, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn notifications, join the FanCo army, and I will see y'all next time.